Okay, so do you remember when we looked before at seasonality, we had this grid that you were provided in your homework? We don't need that. Why don't we need that? Well, because think about your homework assignment we did before. You were given this information and then you had to convert it all the way over here on your spreadsheet, right? Well, we have that already. We're still going to have to do some work, but we already have our numbers going down, right? We already have our quantity, so the y variable, the sales, the thing that we're trying to predict, we already have that, okay? We still need to work on the time period index, still need to work on the seasons and things like that, but don't go to the trouble of making this crosstab. Remember what a crosstab is, right? You got the variables going this way, and then you got them going down this way, and they mean something, right? Crosstab, that's on the exam. Okay, so let's just go ahead and start building this thing out. So there's many ways to do this. Over time, you're going to learn that just because I put year first and then I put, like month after or season after, doesn't mean that you can't put season first and year after, or time period index first, stuff like that. Okay, so just know that. All right. So I'm going to open up our previous work on this just to give you an idea. Right, so remember I gave you this in your homework, and then you had to convert it down a long list using these instructions, right? Remember all that from earlier in the semester where you had to create the time period index, you had to use the sales column, things like that, right? So I'm going to scrap that and get back. Actually, I'm just going to delete all of this out. And this is going to look a little bit different than your homework, but, this is just because we can do it. We can get away with that. Okay? So, side by side, what did we do last time? Well, we put year. Okay, boom. And then running the year down for the number of seasons that we have. So, we have, 12, right? So, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And we've started in year 2013, right? And we're going to go all the way to 2018. So I'll pause the video, and you can go ahead and do that if you're following along. Okay, so next we're going to do the time period. Index. Remember, because this is with trend, so we're just going to increment this all the way down. And we should end up with 72 because we have 6 years with the data and 12 seasons. Okay. Now we're going to create the column headers for each of the seasons. Now this is going to get long, but we're just going to make it easy on ourselves. Copy, paste, special, values, transpose. You don't have to do that. You could literally type in a 1, 2, 3, but why do that when I've taught you how to do transposing, right? Why do it from scratch when, I've already taught you how to do it quicker. Okay. So now we need to assess whether this equals 1 or does it equal 2, etc. So those are those if statements that we'll do. It gets tricky because we have to use absolute cell references here. So we'll just be careful here. So if this equals this, put a 1, else a 0. Now we want to freeze this column B so that we can drag it across, but we want to freeze the row in D1 there so that when we drag it down, it'll be preserved. If this all works out, you can go up to data, home, lost half of my screen here, and go to color scales, right? And you should start getting those step patterns. Now, one thing that I didn't do is I only went to 5, but same rule applies here. You can drag all the way down to where you need to be. And you should have those staircases, right? Okay, right, you should have 6 of them. All right, so let's go back to our sheet. Now we can run a multilinear regression. Okay, so at this point, you've graduated, pretty much. I don't care where you put your formula. If you want to put it over here, go ahead. If you want to create a new sheet, I don't care. Just choose something. Okay, so now we can do our multi-regression formula. Just remember to put in your sales as quantity and not as the dollar values. You certainly can predict the dollar values, but remember what I said about this when we started. We're predicting quantity. We're not predicting the dollars. So just listen to the text. Okay, so now we can set up our model. Okay, I'm going to go up to Data Analysis Pack, Regression. Make sure you've got the sales. Down here, make sure you do not put season because you've already got that. So we'll just grab the time period index and the season binaries that we've grabbed are done. We'll hit New Worksheet Apply, and here we go. We're in business. Now take a moment, highlight everything that's important. Okay, things are highlighted. We've got a great R-squared. In fact, it went up over 0.4 improvement. Remember before it was really low. It's down to 0.28. And now it jumped up there. Great, awesome. Significance is great. P-values are kind of rough. Okay, they're kind of rough, but that's what happens when you're dealing with a lot of data like this. A lot of disparity. Could we improve this? Yes. What could we do with this? We could insert some new variables such as weather patterns, number of days open in the month. Remember way back when we talked about daily average sales? We did that divided by 22, divided by 23, 20, 21, etc., 19s. We're under the impression that we have equal number of selling days by month here, so we could go back in and get some better data and plot that in here, like number of selling days as a new variable. Maybe that would help us out improve our functionality. But let's continue on here because we do have a couple of good things going with our model. It's just shy of 0.7. I bet if we were to introduce a new variable, we would clean that up. F is fantastic there as well. So we're just gonna keep moving because remember, at the end of the day, statistics will be nice, but can your company stomach the appetite of your errors, right? But let's just talk about this. So what we would do is we would put in this formula into our seasonality forecast. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to grab the coefficients, grab all that stuff, and I'm going to come on over here, and we're just going to play around. Right? We are going to put in a 73 here. We're going to put in a 1 here, and this is what we're going to try to solve for. Right? So here's what we do. I just brought these over so that you could see how I copy and paste this massive mess. Now, we're going to cheat a little bit. If you remember when I taught you this stuff, I had you multiply all this stuff times this stuff and then add intercept. This is a nasty little procedure here. For the sake of this video and speed, I am going to just multiply it times a couple of things that I do know exist in this model. So equals, okay, time period index times the time period index coefficient plus this times this, okay, plus intercept. Now, the reason I didn't do any of these is because I already know that they're going to end up in zeros. So I'm not going to waste my time in front of you recording a video showing you how I multiply this times this plus this times this plus this times this, when that effort is all going to lead to zeros. So let's go ahead here, see what happens. Remember that data inc stuff that I like to see? Means you're taking care of your work. Okay, so now we've predicted 43,000 units. Let's see how good we did. A couple of ways you could do this. You could take the average of Januaries. So you could do, you know, like an average of this, and just keep going to town on it, right? You could just keep finding all of them, right? This will take a minute, but let's just do a couple of them, okay? Just to get the point across. So the average of January is 38,000. Now, that is not including the time period index. So one other option is we could just look at the previous January. Because that's a similar time period. Like if it starts to, this has impact, right? Like 97 units are sold times the number of these. That's a big impact. So we're just going to go and grab the previous January, and we can just do forecast error. Again, I'm not making my chart all the way across. This is what I'm trying to get across to everybody in class. You don't have to do it the exact same way I did unless I require it that way. So what I mean by that is you're not going to see me do my forecast error over here and all that jazz and make go scroll all the way over and keep going, right? I just want to check. So I'm going to take the forecast minus actual, and remember, some companies want your actual minus forecast, and figure it out. So what this means is last January, and we can clean this up too, just say Jan 2018, we sold 410 more than our prediction. If I were to take this divided by this, look at that beautiful little forecast error. It's not even 1%. So this is just an example of how seasonality can really improve your model, despite the fact that you might have some p-value errors. Okay, but remember, again, we want our p-values less than 5%, and earlier in this video I explained what some of the things we might be able to do, such as we might be able to put number of selling days in there. I bet that would be a really good thing to do. We could put in average temperature for the month. If we're under the belief that there's a lot of construction workers and landscapers and people, you're really busy out there using Menards products, maybe temperature has something to do with it. Maybe we could do something like number of days where temperature was above average. That could be a brand new variable. So there's lots of different ways that you can improve your model out there. And for purposes of this class, you need to know how to do seasonality and talk intelligently about f-statistic, p-value, r-squared, and the business logic of the formula, as well as get maybe some ideas on how to improve the model in the future. Because in data mining class, when many of you join us in the next 2 years, we are going to be finding those variables, or I'm going to force you to go out there and look on the internet and collect the average temperature, by month. And then I'm going to have you create a second variable that says, is this average temperature greater than average for the last 12 years? Things like that. You're going to have to create that stuff on your own. You're not going to get it from me in a workbook or a worksheet all the time out there. But that's not for the final exam. I digress.